This war was an absolute mess. It was probably the worst war that I've ever seen. So many people were locked out right at the start, and some players were locked out the whole weekend. Some of them are still locked out right now and can't log in. My faction was lucky, and we were only locked out for about an hour, and one of my players is still locked out, actually. So overall, we ended up finishing 4th. But I don't feel like we deserve it. Sure, we played hard and fought hard, but a lot of other factions were unable to war at all. For 3-4 hours, some players weren't able to war through the whole weekend. By coming in 4th, we ended up getting 1,300 war tokens, which is enough for one full pull. The toon that I really want is Cole. I already got Bruce Allen Cooper, but I think Cole would be a great addition to my team. Jeremiah is a Generation 1 toon who I don't have, but not very useful. Vincent, you know what Vincent is. Yumiko, I wouldn't hate. So I'm going to pull in Bruce Allen Cooper, and oddly enough, I get exactly who I want. So I kind of prefer him as a 5-star right now, because it means there's more level up points to get from him. I think Cole will really help me. His active skill is super useful by being able to taunt 3 for 1 turn off a first turn. By using this ability, you cannot run a human shield because his weapon is also a disarm weapon. So you could change it to impair if you want, you could leave it as disarm, you just have a lot of options. Because he also has Berserker as a specialist skill, so as he takes damage, his attack also increases. Now, I'm not going to use Cole as an attacking toon, but I know other people sometimes do. So I'm very happy with this war pull, but it also means moving forward, I'm going to be very disappointed in all my future war pulls, because I've gotten Bruce Allen Cooper and I've gotten Cole. Carl would be decent, but again, his active skill is only bonus HP, I think. His rush is a reviving rush, so I lose an attacker when I run him. Focusing back on the players who lost out on warring this weekend, they lost out on their login streaks, they lost out on war crates, which also count as mystery crate items for the Piper event. They lost out on war matches, which also count towards the Piper event. They lost out on scouting, which you can get raid cans from. They lost out on farming war cans. They lost out on league points. They lost out on season token points by being able to contribute to the faction. They crippled their faction because if they couldn't log in, then the faction may have been low on Europeans or Americans, Aussies, etc., and might have had trouble filling. The faction lost out on their war points. The person themselves, they would have lost out on if they have Survivors Club, so their free pull. They would have lost out on the roadmaps, so not just the limited time ones for the Piper event, so the masks, Lucille's, and bloody bandages, but we had the gear roadmap as well as the weapon crafting roadmap. They lost resources by being raided. They lost out on rep for those who still care from being raided as well. They lost out on using their free energy for the day, which would have helped contribute to the daily rewards that you can do, so the daily missions. They would have lost out on contributing to territory battles, which are also part of the Piper mission, and contribute to solo league placement. They lost out on contributing to faction assault tickets. They lost out on possibly being promoted in their leagues. Instead, it's likely they'll be demoted because most other players that were able to war would have scored more points than them. And by not being able to get into a promotion zone, they lose out on whatever coins they could have gotten as well. And now they're also stuck in a lower league because it's likely that they're demoted, which for some people that could be from Diamond 1 to Platinum 5, which means that the only way to get coins in Platinum is by being promoted, so that's usually like the top, 5 or 6 or so. And for those people who were unable to war at all, if their faction did place for a war token pull, well, if they didn't score any points, they're not going to get that token pull. Even though the wheel is bad, they could have gotten a 6-star toon that they didn't have, or a 6-star that they could use as fodder. It's even just level up points. So there's so much that these players ended up missing out on because Scopely couldn't get their stuff together. I also don't understand why Scopely ended up doing a poll on what should be done for the war. Most people voted for the war to be restarted, yet they ignored this. I don't understand why they're asking for the community's opinion if they're going to ignore it anyway. In my personal opinion, as soon as they noticed that there was an issue with war, they should have stopped it. Just full on stopped it. But instead, they let it get out of control and let it keep running and running. And by the time that poll went up, it was 2 hours past, I think. And it was just getting stupid. Like, my faction had 4 or 5 wars in already, and some factions had 0. If they had restarted war, they would have had to compensate the players who were warring because they would have spent coins on rebuilding, coins on war tins. They would have lost war tins in total. They would have lost out on league points and especially time because people invest a lot of time into this game, and when it's not running even remotely close to being smooth, people become frustrated. I was frustrated when I was just locked out for an hour, and somehow our faction auto-matched someone, and we won by just getting the tie, I guess, and both factions ended up, like, one was awarded the win, one was awarded the loss, so one faction got, 6,000 points, and the other got 4,000. And then for the people who weren't able to get into war, well, they lost out on time. They lost out on ground in war, and Scopely really should have just stopped the event. They should have put out a public announcement saying due to technical difficulties, war will be starting at X time. That time could have been the usual time that wars typically starts at. Instead, they let it get out of control, and now the community is very dissatisfied. I know I'm dissatisfied, and I even got to war, but I don't feel like we really won it because other factions were not able to physically get in due to no fault of their own, but because Scopely just showed its incompetency. I would like to say that this was a shocker, but to be honest, this has been a typical trend as of late. Scopely just doesn't know what they're doing, in my opinion. It's just one thing after another, and with all these glitches and bugs, I don't get why they keep releasing new content instead of fixing the old. I know they say if it's not broke, don't fix it, but there is a lot of things that are broke. I implore for Scopely to fix their game before the players leave.